I mean, you have to get it done at some point. You have to get it done.
Or don't.
This happened so
Or
long
just
ago.
or just say, hey, you know what? The goalposts have moved, and you know what? At this point, the climate's changed since 5 years ago so much that
There's no way that you can do that given the fact that like so many of these programs have already been hit or self-imposed. Arizona would have been a tournament team last year if they didn't self-impose.
yeah.
And now you're just going to say, yeah, we're going to forget everything else, but Arizona still had to eat that punishment.
Well, here's
Oklahoma
my take.
State's already.
Here's my take, and I've said this before, okay, and I know people aren't going to want to hear it. Some media people, but it's true. I was at ESPN when that whole thing broke with Arizona, and I will say this: if that story hadn't been written, that ESPN story, there'd be very little difference between Sean Miller and Andy Enfield. And Andy
Which
Enfield's
which
what's
story are
that?
you referring? What story are you referring to?
The one about $100,000 and Deandre Ayton and Christian Dawkins. We never heard a recording. I don't think the recording ever existed. I think that was inaccurate. And I said that when I was there at ESPN. I voiced my opinion that day, but it fell on deaf ears. And ultimately, they ran it. And I don't think there's any truth to it. I really don't. And again, that put Sean Miller out there in a different light than Andy Enfield completely. But there's really not much of a difference between the two until you look at some of the other Arizona stuff with the academic fraud. If you want to say, hey, Book Richardson, Mark Phelps, academic fraud, I'm absolutely with you. Sean Miller should get hit for that. He was the head coach, and those things happened under his watch. But I still don't believe that the story that went out there that day when I was at ESPN was accurate.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like a Friday afternoon, right? And the headline was Deandre Ayton. Sean Miller paid Deandre Ayton $100,000 or something like that. Is that what I can't remember what it was, but
I don't know,
you're
but I
right.
was just asked. I was asked to be on at halftime to be ready. Originally, it was going to go on the 6 o'clock Sports Center. I was standing there right before the 6 o'clock Sports Center, ready to go on. Then they held it, and I thought they weren't going to run it. And then they ended up running it at halftime of maybe the first game. It might have even been the second game that night. It might have been 9:30 or 10 o'clock. It might have been that late that they held it. And I just remember going in the air and saying, listen, if this story is accurate, and I kept saying it, if this story is accurate, yes, Sean Miller should be fired. If this story is accurate, if it's accurate, and nobody else really did on that network.
Yeah, and obviously you don't at this point you don't believe that story was.
I do not. Nope.
Go ahead.
I don't. No, I don't believe it was accurate. I don't, and I hate to say it, but I don't. I don't. I think we would have had a leaked recording by now. Let's put it that way. We would have had a leaked recording by now of that conversation, and it never surfaced. So I think it was done in a way to buy lawyers in the mix to try to make this a shit show, so that the judge might throw out the entire deal. That's what I think was happening here. But